Uh, I want you to concentrate on your other subjects since anyway Saturday tayo. We will hold our prelim for this class, for these classes on September, the Saturday after September 12, which is September 17, I think. Yeah, September 17. So we still have one class din September 10. Ano? So gagamitin natin yung class day na yan para talakayin yung mga ibang topics na malamang masasama sa preliminary exam. The preliminary exam will of course be open books because it's online. Wala akong magagawa dyan. No? It's open books. You can contact anybody you want. You can call my classmates in the Supreme Court who are sitting justices to ask their help if you want. But it will be under time constraint so that please do not waste your time Googling or talking to other people because sa sabik nyo na makipag-usap at malaman ng tamang sagot kasi nakipag-discord kayo o anuman ay mauubos ang panahon nyo. It is also, the exams are also the worst time to read the topic for the first time. Kaya lagi ako nagbibigay sa inyo ng readings dahil gusto ko sabay-sabay tayong nag-aaral. Kasi kung bibiglayin niyo yung pag-aaral, una, kakapusin kayo ng oras during the exams. Pangalawa, baka hindi niyo maintindihan. Kasi malayo na yung agwat mula nung aking lecture at saka nung binabasa niyo for the first time. Okay? The other thing about the exams is and this is what I will give you as an exercise after my September 10 lectures. Ito ay bibigyan ko kayo ng sample problems. Ang board exams at ang exams natin dito sa mga law-related subjects ay more or less merong laging hypothetical problem. Itong hypothetical problem nito, maaring ako lang ang gumawa, no? Guni-guni ko lang ang gumawa nun. Pwedeng batay sa tunay na kaso. Ngunit dahil hindi tayo nag-aral ng abogasiya, yung tunay na kaso hindi natin gagamitan ng tunay na sagot ng Supreme Court. Okay? So ang sagot nyo pa rin sa theoretical problems na bibigay ko ay batay sa pinag-aralan natin. Hindi tayo lalayo sa pinag-aralan natin. Dalawang style yan. Merong one set of facts, theoretical, hypothetical facts, tapos isa, dalawa, tatlo, apat na questions batay. Yun ang pinakamahirap na problem solving kasi kung nagkamali ka sa pagkaintindi ng sitwasyon, mali na lahat ang sagot mo. So, mahirap yon. Meron rin yung isang set of facts, isang tanong lang. So, yun medyo madali-dali na. Ang aking suggestion when you take exams is don't spend too much time on any single problem because chances are all of the problems have the equal weight. So if you cannot answer it and you don't think, you think maybe you need more time on it later, bilisan mo na lang sa iba. Unahan mo na yun, laktawan mo na muna. Okay? So I'll give you those pointers next week. So ang ating coverage, kung makikita niyo sa lectures natin, ay gagamitin ko yung delyon para hindi tayo malayo. Mula Introduction to Law sa delyon, General Provisions sa Title 1, Obligations, hanggang different kinds of obligations. Titingnan ko komplikado kasi ang types of obligations. So baka titigil na lang ako sa hanggang obligations with the period. Malalaman ko yan sa Sabado next week, okay? I have not made the exams yet, so it's easy to adjust that. Theoretically, we should be already in chapter 4, because chapter 4 in De Leon, as well as in the Civil Code, and Title 3 contracts are really more complicated. But there is no way we can study those chapters and parts of the Civil Code without studying this previous chapter. So foundational ito, ano? This is the building block of what we're going to be studying later on. So I'm really sorry to say, I'll repeat it again, it's very technical, you have to read. Hindi nyo makukuha sa common sense ito. You have to know it, and you have to answer it according to how the authors have discussed it and how we discuss it in class. So, yung mga walang De Leon, tulungan na lang kayo. I don't know how you will do it. Like I told you, I don't encourage violating the De Leon's copyright. But whatever you do, I don't want to know about it. What I want you to do is to be able to have a book, because it will help you go through the things that we talk about in class. Because sometimes I talk too fast, and you may have missed a thing or two. You may need a book to look at. What was another matter I want to talk about? Oh yeah, the dean approved, Ms. Gaspar, the dean approved our plan to have joint classes. But ang idea ko naman talaga mula noon ay yung joint classes natin, gagawin natin yan para lang makahabol. Ano? So yun ang gagawin natin sa September 10. We will have joint classes as both sections have agreed, with a break in between. Now, the reason why I'm doing it September 10 is because, like I told you earlier, itong September 10, we will now tackle the kinds of obligations. Pure and conditional, obligations with a period, alternative, substitute obligations, very technical things. So you will really get bored because it's a very long class period. But if you read and follow me in the Civil Code, you won't have such a bad time. So that I hope, if you look at what I'm presenting, by December, before December, tapos na tayo sa lahat ng technical na bagay dito sa obligations and contracts. So hopefully I would have covered everything. Ms. Gaspar, I want you to send me a list of students who are aspiring, not only for Latin honors, but who are who are dean's listers and things like that. I want to help our dean's listers and those who aspire to be dean's listers. Okay? Is that okay, Ms. Gaspar?
Sige po, sir. Sir, ano po palang oras po natin sa September 10?
I'll tell you, I'll announce everything because I'll clear it muna also again with the dean. Parang hindi yata niya na-clarify mabuti yung hindi niya na-realize yung haba ng period. So I'll do it again. But I am following yung messenger, last message natin tungkol sa topic na to, ano? So it's kung gusto nyo, we'll start at 2 para mas maaga kayo matapos.
Anyway, sir, ito pong oras nyo po sa amin, 2:30 po. Ito pong oras nyo po sa amin, pwede po.
Itong oras na lang na ito. And then we'll just have a little breaks para hindi naman lahat naman tayo makapag-inom ng konti ng tubig or something. Okay? So I'll clarify that in my next message, you know. So bukas magbibigay lang ako ng mga readings uli. And then yun yung tatalakayin natin sa September 10. I already gave the initial readings for September 10 pa natin tatalakayin yun. So today, ladies and gentlemen, Our syllabus, my class is based on uh, the, 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 the flow of the civil code that I mentioned later on. Ano? So basically, it is nature of obligations, types of obligations, and then effects and contents, the substance of contracts, contract law. Okay. I'd like to bring your attention back to Article 1163. We've talked about this last week, but I think I want to emphasize certain things. You know? I found a very good definition of negligence. You know, if you remember, 1163 talks about the duty to be diligent. And negligence is the opposite of diligence. When a person is diligent, he is not negligent. When a person is negligent, he cannot claim to be diligent or in good faith. Okay? Negligence is the sign of lack of diligence. It's the sign of bad faith. Because a person must carry out his obligations to the utmost of his or her ability and in good faith. So please note this if you can. Negligence is the omission of the diligence required by the nature of the obligation and corresponds with the circumstances of the persons carrying it out, of the time, and of the place of the parties. And ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo last time. I don't know kung na malaya nyo ito. Yung ating standard for good father of the family, for diligence, for good faith, it's not fixed. Yun ang mahirap dito sa ating batas. And you know who fixes, who determines what is good faith, bad faith, diligence, negligence? It is the courts. And not only the court, it's the Supreme Court. That's why law students and lawyers study Supreme Court decisions. But, you know, kayo, pag kayo ay CPA na o kayo ay may sariling business, pupunta ba kayo sa Supreme Court para tanungin sila, Mr. Justice, ito bang ginagawa ko ay diligent? Ito ba in good faith? Hindi pwede. The Supreme Court, the courts give us examples of what should be the standards of conduct for all of us, but they also will give respect to a common sense interpretation of Article 1163. In other words, kung kayo ay CPA na at nagre-review kayo ng kontrata, nag-review kayong kontrata at meron ng report yung inyong mga tauhan kung paano ginagawa ang kontrata, how it's being complied with by your company as well as the other party, you can determine if there is good faith, bad faith, diligence, negligence, based on common sense. Itong term na ito, required by the nature of the obligation, walang to. This is a fancy way of saying use common sense. Now, so, if both parties apply common sense, or if you, kasi ikaw yung nagre-review ng kontrata, o tumitingin sa obligasyon, apply common sense, then as long as you do it in good faith, and because you are not a lawyer, you do not take the bar exams, the courts will be very, the courts and the other party will view your interpretation with also good faith. Now, you are company accountant in sometime in 2025, 2026, if we are still around. You are asked to report on the compliance with a certain contract because your boss knows whether or not to pay. Hello, that's your job as a CPA, to issue a check and pay. But before you pay, you have to know, did they comply? Tapos na ba yung kontrata? Is the contract complied with? It's finished. And all we have to do for my company is issue a check and pay, or deposit and pay. When you have a doubt, and it is quite complicated, hindi mo ma-apply yung good faith application of 1163, that is the time you consult with your lawyer. Okay? It will be expensive, but at least it will avoid making a mistake. In other words, do not be afraid. Huwag kayong matakot dahil kayo ay CPA. Una, napag-aralan niyo to kay Attorney Balanag. Ano? And ang sabi ni Attorney Balanag, as long as we apply 1163 with great common sense and good faith, we can be sure of how we impose the standard of due diligence in the conduct of our obligations or in the evaluation of other people's conduct insofar as contracts and obligations are concerned. Okay. The other provision of the law, I think it's the next article, is the parties are free to agree to a higher standard. Why is this? Halimbawa, ang tao, a party, Mr. Manny Pacquiao, wants to build a vacation resort in Palawan. No, Palawan is very beautiful. Alam niyo kung kayo'y magkapera na at nakatapos, huwag na kayo mag-Boracay. Muna mahal sa Boracay. Punta na lang kayo Palawan, mas maganda pa. So si Mr. Pacquiao, he wants to build a nice vacation house in Palawan because he bought a very nice property. Ang ganda ng lupa, white sand, ang ganda ng tubig, walang ang sarap mag-swimming, walang pating, walang alon. So gusto niyang gumawa ng magandang vacation. At kumuha siya ng contractor, si Mr. Señido. Si Mr. Señido, sa halip na mag-practice ng accounting, naging na lang siyang construction contractor. So sabi ni Manny Pacquiao kay Mr. Señido, Brad, tayo mo ka magandang vacation house. Magara talaga. Kaso, gusto ko yung pulido, world class. Kaya instead of ordinary diligence, ang gusto ko extraordinary diligence, extraordinary standard of care. Kasi I want the house to be safe from typhoons. I want the house to be safe from earthquakes. I want the house to be safe from climate change. And I want the house to be defensible against pirates tulad ng Abu Sayyaf. Can the parties do that? Of course they can. Because a higher standard of diligence may be stipulated. Kasi in this case, ang objective, we will talk about this later on, no? The cost of the contract is not the building of an ordinary vacation house. Di ba kung si Mr. Señido, kung gagawa lang ordinary, madali lang yan. Praktisado na siyang contractor eh. But he has to build one to extraordinary standards. And the parties can agree to that. The parties can agree to that such that if Mr. Señido's building fails to meet the extraordinary standards of the contract, he will be held liable. Now, can the parties agree to a lower standard of diligence? Halimbawa, from ordinary diligence to bahala ka na, Brad. Mr. Señido, what do you think? Mag-kuhan kaya pala kayo, mag-present kayo. I wish I'd see all of you because I really don't know if I'm just talking to myself here. Kung kaya ng Wi-Fi nyo ngayon, ano? Okay.
Hello, sir. Ano po yung question?
Can the parties agree to a lower standard of diligence? Kasi sinabi ko, the parties can agree to a higher standard. You know? That is contractable. Can the parties agree to a lower standard?
I think, sir, pwede naman po if there's like a contract.
Halimbawa, sa halip na the ordinary standard is ordinary diligence, di ba? In other words, as long as you're alert, as long as you are careful, okay na yon. Can you agree to lower than ordinary diligence? Pero mo, Brad, ikaw, Mr. Sinido, you're the contractor, no? Sabihin mo doon kay Mr. Pacquiao, masyado na mataas yung extraordinary diligence, extraordinary standard of care. Pwede bang less than standard? Less than ordinary? Bahala na ako. Basta may tatayo ko yung bahay mo, hindi yan matitibag sa hangin. Wala naman tayong climate change pa eh. Tsaka wala na yung abusayap. Gawin ko yung bahay, bahala na ako. Pwede ba yan? See, that is why I give the readings ahead of time, because I'm not asking theoretical things here. No, these are things that have been discussed by the authors. Okay. Mr. Lilang, Dexter, can we agree to a lower standard of diligence?
No, sir. Sir, I think hindi kasi bakit po natin ibaba yung standard natin? Kung pwede po natin taasan yung diligence.
Pakilakasan, please.
Sir, I think po, hindi po kasi sir, parang mas ma-provoke po yung negligence kung bababa natin yung diligence.
You cannot stipulate. Hinaan mo lang, nag-feedback. You cannot stipulate for a standard lower than ordinary diligence, an ordinary standard of care, because that would open parties to all sorts of fraud and negligence. You know? So the law sets the minimum standard. You can only set a higher standard. So now we go to 1164. Let's go over this again. We talked about compliance, in the obligations to give and to do last time. Now, when there is the obligation to do, we usually talk about two types of delivery and two types of acceptance. There is actual delivery, which is, I think, self-explanatory, and there is constructive delivery and acceptance. So an obligation, the simplest obligation to do, I will give Mr. Olabre a copy of the De Leon book on September 10. Yeah? Very simple one. Very simple obligation. Actual delivery is on September 10 or even before September 10, I see Mr. Olabre, face-to-face kami sa sa harap, may Alphamart sa harap ng URS, Binangonan, di ba? Sa Alphamart, binigay ko yung libro sa kanya. So tapos na obligasyon, di ba? He actually received the item and I actually delivered it. Ngayon ganito nangyari no September 10. Scenario number 2. Hawak-hawak ko yung book. Nandoon ako sa Alphamart ng oras na dapat magkikita kami ni Mr. Olabre. Wala si Mr. Olabre, pinadala niya yung kanyang girlfriend. Mr. Olabre.
Po.
May girlfriend ka?
Meron po.
O yun. Di ba? Siguro naman kung pakiusapan mo si girlfriend mo na siya tagakuha ng libro, papayag siya, di ba?
Opo.
Kasi busy ka, halimbawa, nagpa-basketball o meron kang CMT or whatever, di ba? May importante kang ginagawa. Kasi sinabi mo, babe, papunta kay Attorney Balana, ganito yung tsura niya. Na-screenshot ko sa klase. May bibigay siyang libro. Binigay ko kay girlfriend ni Mr. Olabre. Hindi ko natatanong Mr. Olabre anong pangalan. Baka magkabukingan kayo ng ibang may classmates mo, no? Tanggap ni girlfriend ni Mr. Olabre yung libro. Kaso nung paglabas niya sa Alphamart, sa harap ng URS Binangonan, biglang umulan. Hindi naman siya nagdala ng plastic. Nabasa yung libro. Pagkita nila ng Mr. Olabre, wala na basa-basa na yung libro. Pwede ka bang pumunta sa akin, Mr. Olabre, tapos umano ka, attorney, ito naman libro ang binigay mo sa akin, hindi ko magagamit. Basa na Wala kang camera, Mr. Olabre? Mahina ang wifi mo. Ayan!
Sir,
Okay, ano? Pwede
Sir,
ka
para
umano
sa
sa
akin?
akin?
Po.
Para kang galing sa tulog, Mr. Olabre.
Ay, hindi po.
Ano yung background mo siguro? No?
Sir,
sige,
para
ano?
Sir, para sa akin po, ang kakausapin ko na lang po yung girlfriend ko kasi siya naman po yung tumanggap. Hindi na po ako dediretso sa inyo.
Hindi mo masasabihin, hindi mo naman binigay sa akin, binigay mo sa ibang tao Hindi mo pwede sabihin yan? Pero hindi naman, sabi mo, ibibigay mo sa akin, binigay mo sa ibang tao, nasira yung libro, kasalanan mo pa rin yan. Di ba? Hindi mo pwede sabihin yan?
Sir, para sa akin, di po. Kasi po, parang pinagkatawilaan ko po yung girlfriend ko na siya ang kumuha sa inyo.
Inutasan mo siya When I gave the book that I promised to Mr. Olabre to a person other than him, because he himself was the one who told me to give it to some other person, that is constructive delivery. I did not see Mr. Olabre. I never saw him. I only see Mr. Olabre and his good looks here sa camera, but I didn't see him sa Alphamart. But I gave it anyway because he told me to. That is constructive delivery. Ganun rin yung Lazada. Di ba, Mr. Olabre?
Opo.
Yung Lazada, ang order ka, ibibigay na lang kahit sinong tao dyan sa bahay basta mayroong pera. Kaya, kasi kami minsan, always out, I just leave money with whoever's at home. Tapos with the instruction na, ganito yung expect kong delivery, inflatable sex doll. O di, abangan mo Inday. Ito yung pera, bayaran mo. Huwag mo nang buksan. Di ba, ganon. That is constructive delivery. And that is also an example of constructive acceptance because by Mr. Olabre not being present, but still confirming the delivery or receiving the product in spite of the difference or the variance from the terms agreed upon, that is constructive acceptance. So, importante ito, mga kaibigan. Thank you, Mr. Olabre. But please stay online because I want to see your good-looking face. Importante ito kasi this happens a lot, especially sa business. Diba? When you are a CPA and somebody already delivers a check to your company for, let's say, a product or a service done, which product or service you have not yet done or you're still complying with, what do you do? Diba? So you have to be able to determine if you are supposed to pay, have you actually complied with your obligation or have you actually demanded for payment? Diba? Because, and we're getting to that, if you look at our subject, later on we'll talk about delay. So, I do not remember if De Leon talks about constructive or actual delivery. But it will be useful for you to know how these things work. So let's look at 1164. Alam niyo, so that you won't be too bored, I suggest you follow the way we're looking at it, the way we're dealing with it now. Okay. Oops. Oopsie. So here is 1164. It talks about fruits. Now, there are three types of fruits that are being referred to in 1164. Natural, which are the natural products of the item which is sought to be delivered. So when you deliver, halimbawa, si Miss Opiana ay ang sideline niya ngayong panahon ng pandemic ay plantita siya. She's selling plants. Malaking business yun, ha? Especially during this pandemic. A lot of people made money and a lot of people spent money to take care of plants. So when you buy a plant, the natural fruits are everything that's on the plant. You will not give a plant na wala na yung leaves o wala yung soil, di ba? There are very few plants that will survive without soil. So those are and if it is a fruit-bearing plant and it's bearing fruits, you of course deliver the fruits. Hindi mo pipitasin yun, wala mong ibigay. Likewise, when you are selling cattle, alam niyo yung baka, kalabaw, large livestock, kahit baboy, asaw, a female pig. When you sell an animal, it includes the offspring, kung buntis siya. Diba? So, halimbawa, yung baka, binenta mo, buntis pala. Pati yung calf, kasama yun sa presyo. Hindi may sariling presyo yon. Kung buntis siya at the time. Diba? Kung ikaw napabuntis doon sa baka, sa'yo yon. But in other words, if I decide to buy a particular cattle, sabi ko, ito ang gusto ko. Ito. Walang iba. Nagkataon pala buntis siya. Pati yung kinalamnan niya, even the calf that is inside, whether born or not, is mine. That is a natural fruit. Because cows naturally will bear calves at the proper time and under the proper circumstances. The parties know that, or if it so happens that the fruit is already being realized, even if it is unseen, is part of the deal. Industrial fruits are the products of man-made enterprise. So, I don't know if De Leon gives a good example of this. The simplest example would be land. So when land is sold, it includes the fruits, which are the cultivated plants, if any. If I sell my property here, my house and lot, it includes my yard, which is full of plants. Hindi ko pwede tabasin yan, tapos dalhin ko sa susunod kong titirhan, tapos ang mga abutin niya na lang ay lupa. Unless, sinabi ko, halimbawa, si Miss Opiana, ay gustong bumili ng lupa ko at sinabi ko sa kanyang, Sopiana, hindi kasama yung mga halaman, kukunin ko yan. Okay, yan. And in fact, we did have a friend who sold their property without the plants. So you can stipulate that the fruits will not be included, but naturally, when you deliver land, you include all of its fruits because the fruit is an accession of the land. The things existing on the land, when it is sold and as seen by the buyer, are accessions. They're part of the land. Although they're not stated there. Kasi pag gagawa ka ng deed of sale dito, halimbawa, businessman na si Miss Opiana, businesswoman na siya, ilalagay niya sale of land. Kaso kasama doon, it's naturally understood that includes the fruits and the accessions. Kung may bato, kung mayroong right of way, kung mayroong driveway, kung mayroong garahe, kasama yon. Understood yon. When you say you bought a piece of land with improvements. Improvements, when you see, common sense ito, this is something you should know because if you already have money, you have work, and you will buy your first home, you have to know what are the improvements that are included in your deed of sale. Lalo na kung bibili kayo ng nagawa na bahay. Miss Sopiana.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon po.
Yung tinitirahan mo ba, meron ba kayong dingding na sa kabila ay nandun yung kapitbahay nyo? O may sarili?
Yes po, meron po.
Meron, ano? Ang tawag dyan, party wall. No single one of you. Pag lumipat kami sa Piana, hindi mo pwede sabihin na dadalhin ko yung dingding, akin yan, ha? Hindi mo pwede kasi pag dinala yung dingding, walang dingding yung kapitbahay mo. Diba? So, that is called a party wall. And although it is an accession, it is part of the property, it is I'm sorry to make this more complicated, Miss Opiana class. It is an easement. No? It is a right of it is a right of way granted to each of you, si Miss Opiana at yung kanyang kapitbahay. But it is part of the deal. In other words, Miss Opiana, when and if you sell that property, kasama yung wall, hindi pwedeng tibagin kasi nandoon sa kabila yung kapitbahay. Because yung kapitbahay nyo also has a right to that wall. It's a shared wall. But it is an accession, it is a fruit of the property. It is a part of the improvements. So please remember the term. The term improvements is specifically is a term used when you're dealing with real property. Real property are land and its accessions and accessories. So that is the industrial. Civil fruits are those which are stated by law, like profits or encumbrances. Right? So the fruit may be useful, it may not be useful. Kasi halimbawa, tulad ng binigay ko example kay Miss Opiana, the party wall, the wall that divides the two houses, is an encumbrance. Because kailangan mo, hindi mo pwedeng palitan yung design ng bahay mo na mawawala yung wall kasi maapektuhan yung kapitbahay. An encumbrance is something which hinders your full enjoyment of the property. Another thing that encumbers your full enjoyment of the property is a right of way. Nakita niyo na yung nakapunta na ba kayo sa Project 2? Project 4? Diba yung mga bahay, yung Project 2, Project 4, yun yung project ng unang panahon eh. Bago yata pa sa panahon ni Magsays, ni Macapagal. They gave away properties, the government bought properties, private properties, and then subdivided them for resale to ordinary Filipinos. Kaya meron tayong Project 2. Ewan ko ano ba't walang Project 1? Saan kaya yung Project 1? May Project 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Diba? Wala yata Project 9. Wala yata, no? Those were government sales of land so that ordinary Filipinos, middle-class Filipinos could buy a very good piece of land Usually kasi ang cut dyan, ang pinakamaliit na is kan eh. Mr. Dave. Welcome, Mr. Dave, you're late. Yung mga lupa na yan, ang minimum cut yata 150. Itong aming subdivision dito, I live in Lower Antipolo. Yung aming subdivision, which is extends all the way to Marikina. The usual cut of the land is 240 square meters. Lahat yan, pare-pareho yan. Except kami. I don't know for some reason bakit iba sa amin na mas malaki ng konti. So ito mga, kung makakadalo kayo sa Project 2, Project 4, makikita niyo yan, maliliit na lote. Maliliit na lote. 150 square meters is quite small. Although nowadays, malaki na raw yon. But anyway, pagkakatabi mga bahay, tapos merong iskinita. May iskinita. Kasi yung iskinita na yan, may lote pa sa loob. Ang paghati-hati nila nun sa Project 2, Project 4, dahil sa liit, yung lote sa loob, walang malabasan. Because the roads can only exist where the government has already built existing roads, di ba? The government cannot build new roads just to accommodate the new lots. So, ang nangyari dyan, may right of way. Is kinita, tamang-tama lang taong medyo mataba o dalawang taong naglalakad na papunta pa rito. And that is called a right of way. In other words, yung katabi niya, yung bahay na katabi, although nakuha sa kanyang lote yan, hindi niya pwedeng tayuan yan. Walang pwedeng magtayo dyan. Walang pwedeng maglagay ng garahe. Walang pwedeng maglagay ng flower pot, magtanim ng kahit kangkong. Kasi yan ay right of way. It is an encumbrance. Ano? So the civil fruit may be one which is positive and one which is negative. It may be the profits, the benefits that you get because of the operation of law in owning or accepting property. It may also be a burden. The burden is called an encumbrance. Sabi sa Opiana, we'll go to the next topic, delay. I did not put anong article itong delay. Oops, that's not the one. Okay, it's the same. In 1165, Ms. Opiana, we are talking about delay. So we already took this up last time, ano? What is the penalty if the obliger, the person who has to give, delays in giving the thing? Ano ang negative effect ng failure to delay at to deliver a determinate thing? If you look at Article 1170, it says that those who are guilty of delay are liable for damages. Ngayon, Ms. Opiana, I promise to give you a De Leon textbook because you need it for your exams. Ano? Yung exams mo kasi, di ba, pinag-usapan natin, exams natin dito 17. So you should have at least a week to review. So I promise to give you the book September 10. As of September 10, agrabyado ako. I had to take care of a client who was arrested and had to go to city the police station, I was there the entire day, hindi ko na ibigay sa'yo. Ano ang penalty sa akin doon, palagay mo? Hindi ka nakapag-aral. Bumagsak ka sa exam.
Good
Common sense is
afternoon po.
Sopiana, it's not in the book.
Yes, ano po, sir?
You can answer using common sense. It's not in the book.
Yes po. So, yung pwedeng, penalty po ba? Siguro, sir, parang malalesen yung integrity nyo sa point of view ko. Ayun po.
No, yung moral kan, wag natin pag-usapan. What material? What can you do materially?
Di sir, pwede ring mag-collect ako ng parang manghingi sa inyo ng
Damages.
yes
But
po.
most likely walang damages yan. Ang mangyayari dyan, hingi ka ng palugit sa exam, di ba? Ako pa rin naman ang professor mo, di ba? So in other
Okay po.
words, if you look at 1165, when the item to be delivered is a determinate thing, in other words, it is specific, di ba? Miss Opiana can compel me to make the delivery. So September 10 hindi ko napadala. Dapat siguro September 10 pa lang, tawag na siya ng tawag sa akin. Sabihin niya sa akin, Sir, paano ako mag-review? Dali niyo bukas, kahit linggo. Di ba? September 11. So, ganon ang ibig sabihin. You can compel me to make delivery. Or if not, kailangan, pagbigyan ko kayo in some other way. I suffer a penalty. Diba? So, kailangan magbigay ko special exam only for Miss Opiana kasi kasalanan ko hindi siya nakapag-aral. Okay, so delay class is the technical term is mora. Please take note. We talk about mora solvendi, mora accipiandi, because what I showed to Miss Opiana a while ago is only mora solvendi, the failure of the obliger, the giver, to give the item on time. So when we talk about delay, we are talking about the element of time. But there is also mora accipiandi, so please take note of these terms. Mora accipiandi is delay on the part of the debt of the obligee, the person who is receiving, tagatanggap, to accept. Ito ang pinakamagandang example maibigay ko dyan, klase. Ako kasi, balik tayo doon sa situation pinag-usapan ko kanina, may contractor, no? So, may contractor ako, pag ginagawa niya yung bahay ko, babayaran ko siya by September 10. Kasi by September 10, September 9, i-inspect ko na yung ginagawa niya. Pag okay na sa akin, babayaran ko na siya. Ano? Tapos kasi sa September 10, pagkabayad ko sa kanya, aalis ako. I have to go abroad. I have to take care of something. I already have a train ticket bought. I already have my visa. I cannot delay. I cannot wait a single moment. So the only reason I'm showing up on September 10 is to personally pay kasi malaki-laki yung halaga. Hindi ko pwede i-deposit lang. Kaya ibibigay ko talaga yung pera doon sa contractor. If the contractor does not accept my check or my payment in cash, ng malaki-laki, he incurs more accipiandi because he is the receiver. But he delays in receiving the money. But does that mean that the obligation is extinguished? Not all the time. Not all the time because a simple failure to accept may not invalidate, may not extinguish the obligation because there may still be other opportunities to accept. Yun rin ang leeway na binibigay ng batas sa atin. Because nung panahon na ginawa itong civil code, hindi pa nila alam yung GCash. Hindi pa nila alam yung remittance by computer, no? You can do these things without actually going to the bank or without actually seeing people. You can pay your obligations online without physically seeing any person. So that if I fail to pay on September 10 and I have to leave, the contractor does not necessarily incur mora aksipendi because I can simply just pay it. Habang sa flight ako, may wifi, I can transfer the money electronically. Ito ang matinding example. Ayaw tanggapin ng contractor dahil sinabi niya, attorney, ito yung bahay nyo na renovate ko na. Kaso, alam niyo yung pinag-usapan natin noon na gagawin ko itong repairs nyo, renovation nyo for 1.5 million. Eh, hindi ko na ako pwedeng tanggapin yon dahil alam niyo yung tumaas ang presyo bigla. Di ba? Totoo naman. Tignan niyo kung magkano ang mga gulay ngayon, mga kaibigan. Tignan niyo magkano ang gasolina, magkano ang pamasahe, magkano tinapay, magkano isda, magkano karne. Talagang tumaas. So sabi ni engineer, attorney naman yung semento nga tumaas. Tapos gusto mo yung magagandang tiles, magagandang materyales, tumaas silang lahat. Hindi na ho yan 1.5. Sinabi ko na sa inyo yung attorney pag gagawin natin yan, September 1 pa lang, sinabihan ko na sa inyo, tataas talaga ang mga presyo. So wag nyo akong bibigyan ng 1.5 kasi yan ho ay 1.75 na ngayon. So si engineer, nakita kami na September 10, nagala ko 1.5. Ang engineer yan, pinag-usapan natin 1.5. Sabi naman ni contractor, attorney naman Di ba sinabi ko sa September 1 pa lang na hindi na yan 1.5, 1.75 na yan. Dahil tumaas ang mga presyo, hindi ko na makasalanan yan. Wala akong kita dyan. Pareho pa rin ang aking profit margin. Ang diferensya niya pupunta sa presyo ng materyales. So meron tayong conflict, ano? Meron tayong conflict. Huwag muna sila mag-abogado. Analyze muna natin, mga kaibigan. Is there more acceptance on the part of the contractor? Engineer may not, repeat, not negative, have incurred delay in accepting more accipendi if it's true that he told me ahead of time that tataas talaga ang presyo. But if he didn't, I've been so busy, wala akong natanggap na email, wala akong natanggap na tawag. Maganda na ako 1.5 million. Kasi yun lang pinag-usapan. Nagpunta ako September 10, nagkita kami ng engineer. Lilipad na ako. Nihintay na ako ng Grab. Dadalhin ako sa NAIA 3. Ayaw yung tanggapin. Attorney, hindi ko tatanggapin yung 1.5. 175 na to. Hindi nyo alam, ang mahal ng materialis ngayon. Does he incur more accipendi now, Miss Opiana? What do you think?
Sir, I think kung yung bali yung po ba, yung i-clear ko lang po kung yung, di ba, sabi niyo po, kayo yung busy, pero napadala niya po ba yung email nun o hindi po?
Wala siyang sinabi.
Wala siyang sinabi. Di sir, merong sir.
Kami.
Okay. Di sir, walang accipendi doon kasi hindi naman, meron pala sir, accipendi kasi may magiging fault po yun nung contractor na magre-receive ng pera.
And my tender of payment to him and his refusal to receive it extinguishes the obligation. Handa ako magbayad. Ayaw mong tanggapin. Tapos na usapan natin. Gusto mo 1.75. Ngayon ang tuloy yung nakuha ni contractor, 0. Yun ang classic example ng mora accipendi. Okay? There is another term. I'm sorry to tell you, ladies and gentlemen. Puro tayo naglalatin dito. Compensatio mori. This is the situation when both parties incur delay. The giver, the person who's supposed to give the thing, does not give it on time. Time, not quality. It's the same quality na pinag-usapan natin, but he did not give it on time. However, the person to whom it was given was not also ready to accept it had it been given on time. Ano? So, when there is a reciprocal, usually this happens in reciprocal obligations, compensation more. A reciprocal obligation, ladies and gentlemen, is an obligation not only to give one way, but to give both ways. Halimbawa, the contractor and I agreed that I will give him, instead of paying him in cash, I will give him a car. I don't know what car is worth 1.5 million now. Sabihin natin siguro Vios. And he will give me a fully renovated house. Pagkita namin sa September 10, hindi ko dala yung hindi ako nakapagbigay ng Vios kasi hindi ko pa nabili. Kulang pa pera ko. Tapos si engineer hindi rin nakapag-deliver ng tapos na bahay kasi kinulang rin siya sa materyales. Hindi siya nakabili ng materials, hindi niya natapos. What happens here? The law says the parties will be left to themselves. In other words, they are left where they began. Yun ang sabi ng batas. But, ito ang common sense na tingin natin dyan. When two parties are obligated to each other to do certain things, to give a certain thing in exchange for another thing to be given by the other, and they both incur delay, compensation more, what they should do is still try to comply in good faith. Unless talagang gusto nilang payamanin ng mga abogado at mag-aasunto sa bawat isa. Okay? Kaya kami mga abogado hindi nawawalan ng kaso kasi sa mga taong ganyan. The common sense thing to do when there is a reciprocal obligation to give, unless there is bad faith on one or both parties, is to still renew the contract. This is now called novation. Renew the contract so that they can still both comply. If both parties really want a good faith compliance. I want to have a renovated house, and engineer wants to have a nice car. Diba? So even if the law says we will be left to each other, what will I do with the car? I needed the house. What will the engineer do with my with the renovated house? He wanted the car. So although the law says the parties will be left where they are standing, one is no better than the other, the best thing to do really is for the parties, if they're in good faith, to just novate the contract. Sabi ng engineer, pasensya ka na. Sabihin naman ng engineer, attorney, pasensya ka na. Sa halip na habulan pa kami sa korte, we will just novate the contract. That's the common sense approach. And we will agree on a new date. Maybe we'll agree on new values kasi tumaas ang mga presyo. Kaya hindi ako nakabili ng Vios kasi tumaas ang presyo ng kotse. Naging mas mahal yung tires na, di ba? When you deliver something, it must be with all of its accessions. And definitely a car has to have tires. You cannot deliver a car without tires. In fact, a car has 5 tires. 4 that are sitting on the ground and 1 in the trunk. Because you cannot pass inspection, the LTO will not allow you to travel without a spare tire. So it has to have 5 tires. So I have to raise a little more money so that I can buy the spare tire. And si engineer also has to buy new, increase niya yung bili niya sa mga materyales kasi yun ang pinag-usapan namin na ilalagay niya sa bahay. That is the common sense approach. Do not go to your lawyers right away. Magkwento muna ako. Meron akong bagong kliyente. Sinabi ko na sa kanya, ayaw ko tanggapin yung kaso. Kasi matatalo siya eh. You know, as a person who loves money, I can just accept this money. Sabi kasi mga abogado, we have what's called an acceptance fee. So we receive an acceptance fee. It's rather large. Kasi that pays us for the duration of the case. During the case, wala masyadong gumagalaw. Alam niyo mga hearings ngayon, hindi yan madalas eh. Madami na yung 2 beses sa buwan. Kita ko lang doon hearing fee. Walang ibang kita. So the acceptance fee covers all of the work I will be doing that is not covered by appearance fee or hearing fee. I can make money from this client. But I told him frankly, I can accept your money, but you'll just waste it. Because it's a losing case. Mapilit pa rin. Sinabi nga, attorney, you really need you. So, okay, sinabi ko, I gave my acceptance fee. Ngayon, tumatawad naman. So, hopefully, hindi kami magkakaroon ng kompensasyon more at magkakahetot-hetot yung kaso niya. I think we have time for so when you read De Leon, you have to study the effects of delay not only in the obligation to deliver a determinate thing, but also when the delay is to deliver an indeterminate or generic thing, and when the delay is to do or not to do. Okay? Kasi ang real-life problems, the theoretical or real-life problems that I might give you during the exams or which you might encounter during the board exams might include not only the obligation in 1165 to deliver determinate thing. It may be an obligation to deliver indeterminate or generic thing. Pinag-usapan na natin to, di ba? A generic thing is anything that can be replaced by something else in the same class. So a watch, like mine, no matter how rare it is, there is certainly 1, 2, or 10, or 100, or 10,000 more watches like my watch. So kung hindi ko may bibigay itong watch na to sa kay Miss Opiana, because I promised to give her one, I can certainly buy another one and give it to her. Because this is a generic thing. In other words, there are several other things that are similar that I can give to her. Unless there's something unique about this watch. Like it's inscribed, di ba? Yung binigay ko example last time. It's inscribed because it's my anniversary watch. Ganon. Okay, so we talked about accessions and accessories in 1166. Accessories are the things that are attached to the thing itself. Accessories are the things that are meant to enhance the enjoyment of the item. So, when you buy a color TV set, ang color TV set ngayon, LCD na lagi, di ba? Nakakakita pa ba kayo ng TV na detubo? Meron ako TV detubo. It works. But we don't use it. I'm thinking of connecting it to yung sing-along para yun na lang gamitin pag nagsising-along. Because hindi na masyadong uso yun, di ba? Hindi digital in display niya eh. So, pag bili mo ng TV, ano accession doon? Mr. Dave, you're late. Yung TV, ano ang accession doon? Mr. Dave? I'll call you again.
Sir, excuse me po. Wala po ata silang kuryente. Nag-chat po siya sa akin.
Oh, okay. Please, Mr. Dave. Please tell Mr. Dave. Of course, that is an excuse. I understand your situation. I'm willing to consider that. Ngunit sana si Mr. Dave makahabol sa ating mga discussions. Mr. Barcanosa, May wifi ka ba?
Yes po, sir.
Oo. Ano ang accession ng TV pag bumili ka? Ano ang
Yung-
kasama dapat sa TV pag bili mo?
Yung remote po nun, sir. Kasama
Yung remote,
po doon.
di ba?
Yes
Alam
po.
nyo ba napakahirap maghanap ng replacement remote? Ang hirap niyan, kaya kung mawala yung remote ng TV nyo, tsaka nahalata nyo ba, unless you have TVs, halimbawa marami kayong TV, ano nagkataon, at ginamit mo yung remote ng isa, hindi siya nag-work sa ibang brand. Di ba? In fact kami, puro kami lagi kaming Samsung. Kung minsan hindi nag-work yung Samsung sa ibang Samsung. So, di ba? Ano pa? Ano pa palagay mo? Mga TV ngayon may kasama pang isa na accession. Ang tawag nila accessories ako sa karton nakalagay doon. 32-inch TV HD with accessories. Kasi hindi siya accessories. They're using the term not the way we use it in the civil code. These are really accessions because they're part of the TV. You cannot make the TV work without these things. Ano pa, Mr. Barcanosa? There's no right or wrong answer here. It depends on your experience.
Yung mga wire po, sir, yung
Hindi,
kinoconnect po dun sa
Hindi
TV
sila
po.
nagbibigay niyan di ba? Yan ang example. Naunahan mo ako, Mr. Barcanosa. Yan ang example ng accessory. When I bought our large TV, naki-bargain ako doon sa nagbenta kasi mahal So sinabi ko, bigyan mo naman ako ng USB man lang, di ba? O hindi, yung HDMI cable. Kasi kailangan may HDMI cable para i-connect sa DVD player, gano'n, di ba? Alam niyo yung HDMI, Mr. Barcanosa? Ibang klaseng kable yun
Yes po, sir.
Para yung sa maganda yung image ng video, di ba? Na pinapanood mo. So hindi na uso yung yellow, green, gano'n. Ano yan, pangit yun Lalo na HD. Yung HD na ngayon, TV I bought was ultra high HD. So, accessory yon yung mga kable. Kasi kung minsan hindi nila binibigay yon. Kung i-good time mo yung ahente, baka bigyan ka. What is another accession, Mr. Ano ba nahalata mo doon sa LCD TV, Mr. Barcanosa? Nakakatayo ba siya mag-isa?
Hindi po, sir. May kasamang stand din po siya.
Oo, kasama yung stand, di ba? Kasama yung stand. Kasi kung wala yung stand, anin mo yun. Para siyang plato na hindi. Saan mo itatayo, di ba? Okay. That is the simplest way I can explain accessories and accession. But please, do not limit yourself to this example. Baka naman sa exam, yan lang ang alam nyo yung example na accession. Nagbibigay lang ako ng magandang ehemplo dito sa klase. Ngunit basahin nyo yung libro para nyo ng awa. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barcanosa. But please stay online. I think the last topic is nawala. Oh, that's not the one. I'm sorry, class. Everything in my laptop is small. So, fortuitous event. That's our last topic for today. A fortuitous event is an event which is unforeseen or inevitable. Anong example ng unforeseen or inevitable event? Miss Castigador, Lyjet.
Sir, bagyo po. Ipo-ipo, lindol, ganon.
Mga natural events, di ba? So we talk about acts of God. Alam niyo, nakalagay yan sa kontrata. Alam mo, magkuha kayong insurance, hindi ka covered sa insurance pag acts of God unless sinama talaga nila, no? Fortuitous event kasi yun, act of God, di ba? Now, the term act of God seems blasphemous because I'm sure, although God created the universe, I'm sure He did not want one to occur at the time that you are about to comply with an obligation. But we still use the term, unfortunately, act of God, blasphemous as it may sound. So those are, that's an unforeseen because we don't know when an earthquake or an super typhoon will occur. Now, what is an act of man? How can an act of man, Ms. Castigador, be a fortuitous event?
Kapag po independent will po nung obliger.
Gera.
Na nangyari, halimbawa po
Gera.
ninakawan po siya ganon.
Pwede rin, ano? May mas magandang gera. Wars are supreme examples of acts of man. War, riots, diba? Robbery. Ngayon, yung robbery o theft, there are Supreme Court decisions on that. It depends on the circumstance. Ganito kasi yan. I was teaching credit last time and I thought about the contract of deposit. When you go to the hotel or the motel, the hotel owner is supposed to exercise extraordinary diligence for your things and for your safety. Kasi you're putting your life and your things under hands, di ba? Pagpunta mo sa hotel, at criminal pala yung mga tauhan nila o pugad pala ng mga criminal yung lugar nila, hindi mo alam yun eh. Basta ang gusto mo lang, may matitira, may matutulugan ka ng gabi na yon o may mapupuntahan yung pamilya mo. Di ba? Pag nagpunta kayo sa resort, hindi mo na problema yung criminal pala, magnanakaw pala yung kanilang o hindi, madali palang pasukin yung kanilang lugar. When the hotel is robbed, or when the hotel safe is opened, theft yun, di ba? Because you cannot open the hotel safe without knowing the combination unless you blow it up. If you blow it up, that is robbery. Definitely, it might be a fortuitous event, act of man. But kung binuksan nyo ng tauhan, hindi yun fortuitous event na mag-exempt sa hotel or motel owner. Dahil first, they are charged with extraordinary diligence by the Civil Code. And pangalawa, they have control over the safe and who has access. Yung combination. Kung may nabuksan yan, it is definitely their negligence. Kahit na hindi sila mismo ang gumawa. Wala namang kaugnayan yung presidente, yung manager ng hotel. But if an employee or somebody else from the outside, a third person they do not know, manage to learn the combination of the safe and opens it and gets the things of a hotel guest, kasalanan pa rin yan ng hotel. In other words, whether or not robbery or theft is a fortuitous event depends on the standard that is contemplated by both parties. In the case of hotel owners, it is extraordinary. And it depends on the time and place. Okay? Again, how do we know? Tayo mga ordinaryong tao na hindi naman Supreme Court Justice, we use common sense. So, if there are any questions, alam ko you'll be shy to ask it now. Please don't text it to this app because only Google will know about it. You ask it in our messenger group. And like I told you, kung meron kayong tanong na ng iba, huwag nyo nang tanongin, hintayin nyo na lang nasagutin ko. Kung meron kayong tanong, at marami ang ganong klaseng tanong, diba, nagtanong si Miss Cruz ng ganito, tapos si Miss Garovillas, gano'n rin sasabihin nga, sir, gano'n rin tanong ko kay Miss Cruz. Then I'll try to answer it because it seems to be a common question, ano? This discussion, together with September 10's extended discussion, like I told you, September 10, we'll hold joint classes. We will finish the conditional and alternative obligations so that it will be within the scope of our prelims, 1/3 of our semester. So that the rest of the semester we will take up the very complicated concepts in contract law already. So that we have more time to explain it, and we have more time to study examples. And then I will also try to give you a sample of how problem solving is shown. Ang masasabi ko lang sa inyo, how problem solving questions are tackled. Like I told you, I don't know if this is the class I said, when you are given a theoretical problem, first you have to understand the facts. And then you have to understand what are the concepts that we studied that will apply to the facts. I will not ask you a question that relies on concepts that you do not know of. Although I talked about novation, I talked about credit transactions, I only did so in passing. I will not ask you about that. At worst, if I introduce a concept, I will explain what the concept is. But definitely, the answers that you will provide are based on the topics that we have already taken up. Now, please, again, also notice the normal last portion of a Oblicon syllabus I already included in this part of our lessons, natural obligations. Sinama ko na yung natural obligations dito. We will not take it up anymore at the end, towards the end of our course. So kasama yan sa tatalakayin natin. And why did I do that? It's because natural obligations seem very intuitive sa atin, di ba? It's very commonsensical. So ang tingin ko, mas angkop kung pag-aaralan natin ngayon habang hindi nyo pa napag-aaralan talaga yung mga obligasyon legal dahil mas madaling intindihin. Kaya ako sinama dito. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Only 40 people showed up today. So, can we have our snapshot, Ms. Gaspar?
Okay po, sir. Open cam na po tayo.
Yung mga iba sa inyo, parang bagong sipilyo,
Ayan, game po, smile.
May nawawalang iba.
Isa pa po, wait lang po.
Wala si... I cannot read it.
Okay na po, sir. Thank you po.
Okay, so I'll give you your reading assignments tomorrow. We will start extended sessions September 10. And we will only do that so that we can catch up with our topics for our preliminary exams, which is tentatively set for September 17. So please, pag-aralan nyo na yung mga ibang subjects nyo. Sa weekend na lang kayo problemahin tong klase natin. So have a good week.
Thank you po, sir.
Goodbye.
Thank you po.
Thank you.